Everybody. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Abby Ball, Vice President of Market Research here at Marion Square. And with me today is Harvey Morrison, co-founder and CEO of Marion Square, Caitlin Lewis, Director of Market Research at Carahsoft, and Marty Grisky, OSINT Team Lead at Carahsoft. In today's session, we want to discuss the open source intelligence market, how this market has changed with the introduction of social media and more recently AI, and some of the key areas government is seeking assistance to help with their OSINT programs. We will also review the key resources that Carahsoft and Marion Square has to offer in expanding this market. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. We will be recording the webinar today, and we'll be sending a follow-up email with the recording and slides from today's presentation. Everyone will be muted for the duration of this webinar, but we encourage you to submit any questions you may have through the Q&A window, as we'll be doing a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. All right, Harvey, I'll hand it to you to get us started and share more about Marion Square.
Hey, thanks very much, Abby. I appreciate it. And thanks for everybody for joining today. We appreciate the time. So just a quick background on Marion Square. I'm Harvey Morrison. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO here at Marion Square. Essentially, we are an advisory firm that works with technology companies seeking to launch or grow their government business. At a high level, we help organizations understand and map the federal market and state and local markets for funded opportunities and initiatives that are a good fit for their technology. We further go in and help organizations develop and execute go-to-market sales strategies. And we have a very close partnership with the team over at Carahsoft. We've worked with them for quite a few years. And you're in that ecosystem, so we ensure that our go-to-market strategies leverage the resources and the capabilities that Carahsoft has to offer to their vendors. Caitlin, I'll let you talk a little bit about Carahsoft.
Thanks, Harvey. So thank you, everyone, for joining today. I think most on the webinar today are familiar with Carahsoft, but for those who are newer to our relationship, Carahsoft has been supporting the public sector IT industry for 20 years now with our expertise and solutions in cloud, AI, emerging technology, OSINT, and a lot more. We work with our wonderful resellers, system integrators, and consultants to provide industry-leading IT products, services, and training through hundreds of our contract vehicles. And Carahsoft is dedicated to helping our vendors and partners navigate the complexities of selling into the government marketplace, which brings us to why we are here today. If we could please go to the next slide. So we're going to take some time to talk through what is currently happening in the OSINT space, because there's a ton of opportunity here that you can and should be leveraging today and now. So let's kind of start by taking a macro view of the market and kind of highlight why are we really excited about this space. So from a revenue perspective, the OSINT market is relatively large. It's currently sitting at around $9 billion and is expecting to grow above 20% annually through 2023. So from this, we can see, hey, this is a growing market. There will be increased adoption and understanding of OSINT. So, hey, the maturity of this market is also increasing, which is a great thing. And what we can see on the chart on the left, there's a big need for text, social media, video, security, and geospatial analytics. And while many commercial organizations are leveraging OSINT capabilities, the government market, for this type of technology is probably the largest and continues to grow in both federal as well as state and local. So looking a little bit deeper into the numbers on the chart on the right-hand side, it appears as the top users of this technology is going to be law enforcement, followed by government intelligence organizations. And just to kind of quickly highlight, the research is suggesting that state and local law enforcement agencies is also a great marketplace for OSINT technologies. They're really leveraging social media analysis for everything from combating human trafficking to identifying violent extremists. So, hey guys, don't forget about state and local when you guys are developing those go-to-market strategies for OSINT. If we can go to the next slide. And just to kind of further highlight this, how the federal government has a big focus on OSINT, The Intelligence Authorization Act of FY 22, 23, 24, which is still kind of pending right now, they specifically mention the need to build out and further augment agencies' capabilities in OSINT. And they're going to do this in a couple of different ways. So one, they want to identify opportunities and barriers for more effective use of open source, public and commercial information by the intelligence community. They also need to set a standard of policies, right, regarding the acquisition, treatment, and sharing of that said data. Because, for example, hey, if DHS is, collecting citizen data for maybe terrorist activity, it could really place distrust with the public. So there's also an ethical component to this. And lastly, the act really addresses, hey, how does the intelligence community reorient and engage in a strategic competition with our adversaries at a global scale? Because, in order to do this, which is what we have quoted here on the screen, our agencies must continue to build open source intelligence capabilities, augment the capacity, enhance sharing of intelligence capabilities, strengthen the analytical and collection capabilities relating to non-military threats, including technology competition. So there's a big, big focus on this. And if we can go to the next slide. So to kind of help address these focuses, on OSINT in the IC space, the ODNI and CIA released their OSINT FY 24-26 strategy, which I do encourage everyone to read. It's only about 12 pages long, quick, easy read. And they really kind of outline 4 goals. So those 4 goals are going to be, hey, how do they kind of coordinate open source data acquisition and expand that data sharing? How do they establish integrated open source collection management? Drive the OSINT innovation to deliver new capabilities, and develop the next generation OSINT workforce and tradecraft. So overall, guys, again, this is just showing us, hey, the government has a huge, huge focus on the OSINT marketplace. And so now I'm going to hand it over to Harvey. He's really going to help us define what the OSINT marketplace looks like and walk through some more areas of opportunities for you guys to be considering.
Hey, thanks very much, Caitlin. And again, thanks for everybody joining today. What I thought I'd do is start by really defining a couple key terms that are really foundational for the space when you go to talk to the government agencies. The first one is OSIF, or open source information. And this is essentially the raw data that's being collected and forms the foundation for the intelligence or the OSINT that's coming from the analysis of the open source systems like social media accounts, Twitter, Facebook, Telegram, Instagram, newspapers, white papers, blogs, websites, all those sorts of things. As you can probably imagine, the amount of data, or OSIF, that is now becoming available for agencies to work with or to analyze has exploded over the last few years with the skyrocketing use of social media and a bunch of other sites starting to pop up. While the vast amount of data that's readily available today can be seen, as a positive, hey, there's more information for us or for agencies to start to look through, the issues agencies must really deal with when it comes to OSIF include, keeping track of all the relevant data sources. So, hey, what are the data sources out there that are critical, and how do we keep track of them? How do we stay current with those sources? Identifying the new sources that are continually starting to come online. So, there's all sorts of new blogs that go up, websites that go up, those sorts of things. So how do we identify and keep track of those new sources that are coming online? And then with that, how do we handle just the sheer volume of this OSINT data that is now being made available and generated daily? And then you throw on top of that, the recent outcomes or the recent launch of generative AI, which is creating a lot of misinformation and disinformation, which agencies really need to identify and make sure they remove or account for as they're starting to do their analysis. So again, OSIF, or the open source information, this space is really starting to get large. And as you'll see as we walk through the rest of this presentation, it is an area of assistance that many of the government agencies are talking about. And then there's OSINT, or the open source intelligence. And this is defined by government as the intelligence that is produced from publicly available information that is collected, exploited, and disseminated in a timely manner. And in the timely manner is another big issue that we'll be able to talk about a little later on here. But in order to turn OSINT into OSINT, this raw data needs to move through what's called an intelligence cycle, which is where many of the OSINT technologies play today. So for organizations that are trying to help government agencies, and I think there's quite a bit of opportunity to assist government in this intelligence cycle. So if we take a look at an example of an intelligence cycle for the open source information, or that open source information must go through to become open source intelligence, this is an example that we found from the SANS Institute. There are quite a few examples that are out there, but essentially they all follow the exact same steps, which include, preparation or getting ready to create the OSINT information. So what intelligence is the organization trying to determine, and what sources of data are required to really drive this intelligence? So it's the whole preparation and getting ready for this. Then it's the collection phase, where you're gaining access and gathering the required information from all the open source sources that are out there. And keep in mind, that's everything from a website, a blog post, social media obviously is a real clear example of that. And then there's processing the data. And this is where the information is organized, collated. This is also where organizations must identify fake or bad data to ensure it's not included in the analysis phase. And then analysis, right? Identify the required intelligence from the data that's being collected. And this, as you'll see, is a key area where I think AI is going to play a role. As this data set continues to get bigger, how do you automate through the use of AI? Getting through this data and identifying that particular piece of intelligence that you're looking for. And then there's dissemination. So now how do we create a report and make this report available in a timely manner across the enterprise? So let's take a look at some of the main challenges that agencies are really kind of facing today as they work to improve their OSINT capabilities. There's a great article, and we can send it out as part of this as a follow-up by the Modern War Institute from West Point that highlighted the fact that DoD routinely faces challenges in maximizing the value of open source information. Specifically, the article states there are 3 challenges or 3 areas where they really need some assistance. And doing research across government, it appears that a lot of these 3 are resonant across or challenges across pretty much every agency, right? One is like the collection challenge, which we talked about. The other is the vetting analysis. And the third is sharing content or reporting this in a timely manner. So collection, right? Some of the problems that they're having essentially is just the sheer amount of data that's available to collect and analyze. And how does an agency identify the relevant data and sources? Again, new sources are constantly popping up that could be relevant information. So how do you identify those relevant sources? And if you think if you think about it, there's really a great deal of information that's out there. And again, more and more is coming online every day. And then collect it in a timely and efficient manner. The second issue with collecting that they're starting to highlight is related to language. So if you're in a foreign country, think of the Ukrainian war, the war in Gaza, those other places where you're trying to do this type of work. A lot of this information that you're collecting is not in English. So, you need to ensure that the systems and the human resources that you're using in this OSINT process understand the local language. Particularly context and nuance is critical from a collection standpoint. And then vetting and analysis. So upon receipt of this content, how does an agency analyze it? And then secondly, how does an agency determine its authenticity? So, according to the article, organizations and commands need access to an effective mechanism for analyzing a piece of content, right, for authenticity. The article actually specifically states there were many times that the DoD had a video or an image that was perfectly aligned to a messaging goal, but they were not able to use it because it couldn't be verified in a very timely manner. Then lastly is sharing. The article highlights from a sharing perspective that there's no readily available means for storing and sharing OSIF, right? So that core content that's driving OSINT across DoD. There's a lot of stovepipe applications that collect data and only use them for their analysis. So how do you create a large system that everybody can access all this relevant OSIF information from, and then very quickly turn it into OSINT information? Another great article, I think, which highlights the challenges as well as what organizations are thinking about today, is an article that came out of RAND Corporation, which pretty much states that there's a need for a second generation OSINT capability for the entire defense enterprise. You know, the article specifically highlights the fact that OSINT is becoming more complex in terms of both the sources that it needs to draw from and the methods that it needs to use to really kind of create these OSINT reports. So, you know, with individuals, it kind of quotes this, with individuals making information available in ways that have never existed before. So how does the enterprise, you know, identify this information, find this information, vet this information to make sure it's valid, and then analyze it so you can generate reports in a timely manner and get them distributed? So if we look outside of DoD and more across the intelligence community and other areas in general, we've done some research and uncovered some of the key challenges that I think are common across these organizations. And we want to dive a little deeper into each one of these to kind of wrap up the webinar here. But, you know, mobility is a big one. So accessing OSINT while you're on the go. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about these in the later slides. Data and data sets to power OSINT. Incorporating artificial intelligence into creating OSINT, and then reporting and transparency. So let's dive into these in a little more detail. So from a mobility perspective, the challenge was highlighted several times across a few different agencies, but it is definitely a main focus for our friends over at the State Department, particularly the Bureau of Intelligence and Research, which leads much of the State Department's OSINT work. They recently stated that mobile applications is a technology they're going to invest in to really realize the open source vision that they have. And essentially what they're saying is hey, if I'm an employee of State Department and I'm in the field and there's actions that are happening now from an open source or an OSINT perspective that I need to know about, I want to be able to access this information and these reports on the go. So on a mobile device, via mobile app, those sorts of things. So for organizations that maybe are interested in talking to the Department of State about some of these requirements that they have, the Intelligence and Research Group stood up or established their Open Source Coordination Office. And if you look at the bottom there, this Open Source Coordination Office was established to ensure proper training, licensing, and tools to conduct open source research and analysis. So this would be an area, if you can help them from a mobility perspective, or even feel like you have an OSINT solution that's good for the State Department, really target or look at this Open Source Coordination Office as a place to start. And this gentleman named Brett Holgram. The next one is the data and the data sets. So some interesting information we found out from a DoD perspective. According to the head of DIA's Open Source Integration Center, right, the DoD will rely on contractors to help with a data-centric approach to OSINT. And with that, the approach will require or rely quite heavily on both artificial intelligence and automation. So here's DoD saying, hey, we're really going to rely on artificial intelligence and automation to help us with that. And with that reliance on there, this gets back to, you know, data sets and what they were talking before about, hey, we'd like to have one central spot where all this data can be collected and we can share the data and we can run analysis on the data. But the data needs to be prepared or ready to be able to do this. And so they highlight here what they're really looking for, which are data sets that are cataloged, discoverable, or resident in government or commercial applications that are readily machine ingestible through an API. Again, what they don't want, they want to get away from are these stovepiped data stores and how can they collect all this data and then be able to leverage it across all of DoD. DIA has opened this open source intelligence integration center. And that's going to be, I think, one of the areas that's going to be driving the work that DoD does from an open source perspective. So keep an eye out on that organization. The incorporation of AI, so I think that goes right along with the data and the data set. So once you get the data and the data sets right, there should be a vast amount of data that's out there. So to efficiently get through this, you're going to need artificial intelligence, machine learning, human language technologies to be able to do that. And Caitlin had already mentioned the OSINT strategy from the IC for FY24 through 26. Now, this is a pullout directly from that article or that document, which says OSINT, the OSINT community inside of the IC is already pioneering new uses of AI, machine learning, and human languages, but they must expand and accelerate these efforts to sustain a competitive advantage. So if you have a technology that I think is a fit or you think is a fit for the space, they have the open source enterprise division, right, which is now working around projects and programs to digest OSINT and then basically help analysts locate the most important information that's in there. So they're utilizing and looking for new tools to do this. So keep this in mind as you start to plan your go-to-market potentially in this space. Improved reporting. We've mentioned this a whole bunch of times, but DHS actually really highlighted some of the critical issues with an OIG report that they published about a year and a half ago, which talked about improved reporting, especially in the areas of timeliness and dissemination of this are a challenge. According to this DHS OIG report, they found that close to 50% of the OSINT reports that they reviewed for this study had intelligence for a week or more before a report was created. And many of those included threats to government, public safety, and first responder facilities. So, they can identify it in a lot of cases, but then being able to get it in, validate it or verify it, that it is true, and then get it into a report that can be sent out really tends to be or seems to be a problem that DHS is highlighting. A couple of key suggestions that the report recommended for DHS to look into is, look for technologies or the ability to standardize reporting to enable better collaboration. And then secondly, the ability to integrate reports coming from multiple solutions to really create a common operating picture for the agency. Transparency is really the last one. So, this is the sort of what we have talked about. When data comes in, how do you clearly understand that it's verified and valid before you put it into a report that then sends it out? And then when somebody asks, hey, did you validate this? Can you walk back through almost like the chain of custody to show us the validation of this OSINT or OSIF information that you found, to be able to very quickly do that? So again, if you've got technologies that address some of these issues, I would highly recommend that you look at this space and look at some of those agencies that we've talked to, because these are all documented recent problems that we've been able to find in our research. Just to kind of wrap up here from a Marion Square perspective, if you'd like to learn more about how Marion Square can assist with your market strategies or mapping or understanding of this space, please don't hesitate to reach out. We've done a lot of work and a lot of research around the OSINT space and feel like we can add or provide a lot of valuable information. So please feel free to reach out to us if there's any questions you have or things we can help you with. With that, I'll turn it over to Marty.
Awesome. Thanks, Harvey. Thanks, Caitlin, and thanks, Abby, for putting together this great content here that we're getting to see. I'm really here to talk about OSINT from a Carousel perspective, right? So kind of what our mission is, how we're doing that, and it kind of the points of contact to reach out to if you want to get involved. So first and foremost, obviously, we've recognized the demand from the government for OSINT-related technologies. We've curated a line card of technologies to help the government better organize, understand, and map the vendors in the market. We've aligned our standard contract vehicles and alternative routes to market, and we're planning some activities around OSINT and OSINT related topic areas within the government, right? And we're working to position our vendor and our ecosystem as the subject matter experts. We really provide that medium to help government customers solve their OSINT challenges, right? Part of how we're doing that right now is obviously we're building out a line card and a website to highlight our OSINT vendor portfolio. We're categorizing our ecosystem in multiple ways, kind of like Harvey discussed earlier, first by the intelligence cycle, second by the technique they're using to do it. And then third, we're organizing a lot of marketing events that are OSINT focused throughout the year. First of which will actually be taking place on May 17th. We are partnering with the OSINT Foundation to do a half-day technology expo for OSINT vendors. It'll include a lineup of speakers from the CIA and DHS, and we'll also during that event have a traditional trade show floor like I'm sure many of you are used to from the events you attend currently. We'll also be attending OsmosisCon in October, and we'll be doing a webinar series really highlighting each individual vendor's OSINT message. As much as Carahsoft is really providing the needed technology for the government, we really want to work with organizations like Harvey and Marion Square and the OSINT Foundation to create some standardization around not only technology in the OSINT space, but definitions, training, certifications, and kind of the overall discipline as a whole. If you're already a vendor in the Carahsoft portfolio, please touch base with your current sales and marketing point of contact, right? They'll reach out to us internally. We can help get you facilitated as part of our marketing strategy. And they are still your point of contact for Carahsoft, right? What you're seeing on the screen here is your vertical specific team. So you see Mike Schrader as the executive and me being the vertical sales leader on that side. If you are not a part of our portfolio, but looking to get involved, please give me a call, shoot me an email, and you can reach out to any of the aliases you see there. Again, if you have any questions, reach out to those aliases. Someone will get back to you, and we'll make sure kind of we get you organized with the information you need.
Awesome. Thanks, Marty.
Great, thanks everyone. Just gonna go through some quick Q&A before we hop off here. We had a couple questions come through. So one being, okay, you know, we know about OSINT. Now how do we get started?
Yeah, I'm happy to hop in, and then Caitlin, you can kind of add your thoughts there. I mean, we'll share these slides post the call. I would say if you've got an interest in the space and the technology that you think fits some of those challenges that the agencies are trying to solve, I would definitely reach out to those agencies. I would definitely reach out to the folks at Carahsoft as well to see how they could help either from an event perspective or contact perspective or those sorts of things. And then also, as Caitlin had mentioned as well, I would not forget about state and local government, because I think that's going to be a big market for us, especially state and local law enforcement.
And I agree. I think it's all about kind of aligning to, hey, what is the government looking to do? So, hey, looking at those trends, what kind of, information are they putting out? What are the challenges? Harvey just highlighted a lot of challenges that they're facing and that they want to address. So making sure, hey, your solutions can map to those challenges and how it can help, we find really, really resonates with the customer.
Great, thank you. We had another question come through. Marty had mentioned an event in May. How can I learn more about attending or participating?
Yeah, great question. So if you're already a sponsor of the OSINT Foundation, they should be doing some outreach to the sponsors, right, to get you guys involved. For anyone that's not a sponsor, reach out to the OSINT alias that we provided in those slides. And as we have that information ready, we'll get that out to you guys. We're finalizing some information this week, so kind of by early next week or late next week, we should have that kind of finalized package for the event.
Great, thank you very much, Marty. Second here. Are there any concerns in security of AI for use in data collection and analysis on government systems?
Yeah, so the government, I will tell you, is working really hard to put together governance over the use of OSINT, especially when it comes to U.S. citizens. Each individual agency is starting to put those sort of not roadblocks, but guardrails in place. At this moment, I would say I haven't seen an overarching government, meaning like an OMB memo or something come from the Executive Office of the President stating these are the guardrails, but I am starting to see individual agencies put those guardrails together. Now, for the IC community specifically, the CIA is the lead agency in setting up those guardrails and that governance. So you need to look to them, I think, for guidance for all of the, intelligence communities, but DoD and DHS seem to be working on their own guardrails. I don't know, Caitlin, if you have any more information around that.
I would just say, like, I don't like using the word assume, but I think, hey, with everything that we're seeing with Zero Trust, CMMC, hey, with these self-attestations that are kind of coming down the pipeline, I think they're going to be applied to the security aspect of this, right? Like, hey, making sure everything that's getting into their network is without a doubt secured. So I would take a look at some of those kind of policies and kind of see, hey, how are those specific agencies, kind of mapping to security as it relates to kind of data collection and analysis?
Great.
Thank you, Caitlin. We've had a couple more questions come in. Let's see here. There's one question asking about US-based companies. We have a couple questions on they have commercial clients and they're interested in the government sector. We're going to reach out to Caresoft and Marion Square as a starting point, but what else should we include when trying to connect with you?
Yeah, no, just send me a quick email and we'll make sure we get back, and we're happy to set up and have a conversation with you. And then we'll share obviously the slides and the recording of the video when we're done. But no, just reach out.
Yep. And I would say the same thing on the Caresoft side. Just reach out to any of those aliases that Marty went over.
I have one more that just popped through. We are a UK company with a specialized OSINT AI platform for government applications, but we have had trouble engaging with US government. Are there restrictions in working with other Five Eyes countries?
Not that I'm aware of, from that perspective. I mean, we help other foreign entities that do business with the US government all the time. So I think there's some other things you'll want to think about as you position your go-to-market. But I haven't had, I haven't had any issues. Caitlin, you all see way more than we do, from that perspective, but I've not run across any at this moment. We, like I say, we help 2 or 3 different foreign owned organizations do business with the US government.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. And I think even with like OSINT, I can't remember if it was in the Intelligence Act or within the strategy, but they do mention, hey, kind of partnering with other countries
Yep.
and trying to, hey, how do we make this, the best, it can be. So I know that they are interested in partnerships.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay, it looks like that wraps up our Q&A. So again, thank you everybody for joining today. We will be following up with some resources as well as the slides and the recording of this presentation, as well as everybody's contact information. So thank you and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks very much, everybody.